Hey, how's it going? Mr. Bill here, and welcome to part one of a three-part series I'm doing for Splice called the Splice YouTube Creator Series. This is basically a three-part series that I'm going to do, and they're just like mini tutorials, I guess. And I'm just talking about like a little bit of stuff that I like to talk about, I guess, in each one. Like just they told me to just choose any subject that I like. So what I'm going to talk about today is I'm going to focus the series around sound design and audio manipulation and resampling and stuff. So part one is about resampling, and I'm going to show you exactly what I've done here. So basically here I have a project file, and this project file is full of a bunch of bass sounds that I made that would later be used in a bunch of my tunes. And I do this quite often, just make a bunch of random sounds, and I don't really concentrate on the rhythm or the melodic structure of the sounds. I pretty much just like make sounds that sound tonally nice, and then later on I sort of do the audio editing to get them sounding coherent, or so they're referenced with like a piece of music later on, but at this point they're not, so I'm just making random sounds. And in this project file, it's all like neuro basses and stuff. So the way I started is with a simple patch. It's just two oscillators in Zebra and some noise. So without the filtering, it sounds like this. And then I added a filter. And that's just going to a multi-stage envelope generator, which is just looping that sort of movement on the filter. And then I have a second filter after that, and this filter is being modulated by a multi-stage envelope generator 1, so there's 4 of these in Zebra. And that sounds like this. And then what I've done is I've looped something. I think it was maybe multi-stage envelope generator 2, yeah. So I've messed with the loop, and if you see if we turn this up, it speeds that movement up, and if we turn the loop down, it slows that movement down. So I've actually automated that parameter, so the movement the movement is preset like that, but then it actually kind of speeds and slows down that movement and sounds like this. And you can see that playhead playing through there and doing all that interesting stuff. And then what I did is I rendered that down. So this series is all about resampling. So that's kind of I was just showing you how the sound was made for the sake of it, but that's not really what we're talking about here. So then here you can see this sample says freeze 1 Zebra 2 X64. So I rendered this, or I froze it, and then I put it in a sampler, and then I processed it. So without the processing and the saturation, and if we turn all of this pitch bending off, and if we have the note playing back at C3, which is the default root note of the sampler, which will just play it back naturally how it's supposed to be, it will sound like this. This still sounds like there's a little bit of processing on there. Oh, okay, so there's like distortions and stuff in this. Yeah, so it sounds like that, which is exactly what we started with. But then I've added like filtering and shaping on the sampler itself, and then I've got all this distortion processing, low, mid, and high. I'm just splitting those out with EQs in different chains, and then I'm distorting them separate amounts. Like actually, I think I'm distorting them all the same amount, it looks like, but I've added reverb to the highs, so so that sounds like this. And then in the mids, I've kind of added like a flanger and some extra saturation and a limiter just to turn it down a little bit. And then the lows, I've just saturated them, so they just sound like that. So what we've done here is, and then also there was a bunch of like pitch bending in there. So again, that's like the movement already existed in the sound, but then when we pitch bend it, it changes the movement again, and also obviously changes the pitch of the sample because it's changing the playback speed. So yeah, we basically took this sound here and turned it into this, which sounds like a kind of crazy neuro bass. And then I did this, you see I've got 8 variations of that. So the next one's just a different variation with different pitch bend amounts and different processing and stuff. And also sometimes I change where the playhead starts, so the sample's playing back a different point. And even just changing that, you can get completely different stuff. So yeah, that's kind of the way I deal with all my sound design. I kind of get it into audio as fast as possible, and then start doing it in doing resampling and samplers and stuff. So after I did all of those variations, I took one of them and I rendered them down, and then that's where we get source 1.2. So I took, you can see it says freeze source 1 variation whatever. I can't read it because, variation 1, there we go. So what we did is we, I guess we just took this first variation and put it in a new sampler and then fucked with that more. And again, we just did a bunch of weird pitch bending stuff and sampler stuff, and it sounds like this. Oh, also there's a vocoder here, so that changes, that adds like some noise to it, and then I'm fucking with the formant and like messing around with this EQ and stuff just to kind of accent the point at which the EQ is boosted, and then I'm sweeping that around. So if I just grab this and move it around, you can hear when I move that around that it accents like different, I guess, like harmonics in the sound. And then if we continue, I've just got basically a bunch of variations of this. And then source 2.1 is the same again, but then I fractalized it and took it from source 1.2 and then moved it into source 2.1. And basically that's the idea. You get the idea. And then after I did all this, I kind of just rendered them all out, exported them with normalize turned on so that they were all sort of hitting 0 dB at their highest peak, which just made it convenient when I was loading them into samplers later in tunes that I didn't have to mess around with the volume so much. And that's basically it. So that's the end of part 1. I was just kind of displaying how I resample bass sounds and design my own basses that I use in other tunes. So hopefully you enjoyed that, and I'll see you in part 2.